You a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Times chief sports reporter Martin Ziegler and Genesis broadcaster Henry Winter. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the back pages as we have them so far. So in Martin's paper, well, it's Jack Grealish who is pictured. What next? Grealish was the £100 million star who won the treble with Manchester City, but after a year in the wilderness, the world of football asks, what is next? Yes, certainly an enigmatic, mercurial character. We'll dive deep into the world of Jack Grealish. And also, back page of the Mirror, Reddies can reign again. Sir Arne Slot backing his side's chances of successfully retaining their Premier League title. Of course, they've got the Community Shield this weekend against Crystal Palace. And there you can see also on the right-hand side, Ollie down on future at Palace. That's Oliver Glasner, maybe suggesting that, you know, what happens with him might be affected by how they go in the transfer market. Back page of the Sun looks like this. Here we go. United's new HQ fitted with smart urinals. Yes, that's the particular detail they've decided to feature in the headline. And Glasner in Palace quit threats. That story again. Welcome once again to Martin and to Henry. Thanks so much for being with us, guys. So we're going to start off with Jack Grealish. You've got this in your paper, Martin. So let's come to you. I mean, it is a very, very good question to ask. What next for Jack Grealish? And of course, you know, this tag, this £100 million tag that seems to have weighed very, very heavy on Jack Grealish. But of course, he has had those moments of glory with Manchester City, notably the treble, and that's the player that Pep Guardiola so desperately wanted to have, but he's not really seen him much, has he, Martin?
No, he hasn't. I mean, I think a couple of years ago, remember those pictures of him on the leading the celebrations on the bus after the treble, and it's all been sort of downhill from there. And I mean, really surprising in many ways. And the reasons for it, Martin Hardy, my colleague, tries to go into it in some depth. I mean, it's. Why has he spent so much time on the bench? You know, he didn't make it into the Euros squad, and it just seems that somebody had so much talent, the first English footballer to cost more than £100 million, and yet, I mean, I'd be interested to know if Henry thinks this is down to Guardiola, down to Grealish himself. It's in a way, it's quite tragic. And I mean, I know Everton have been linked with trying to give him a second chance, but it's not straightforward. Yeah,
I'll come to you, Henry, on this. I mean, you know, Grealish clearly is, and I mentioned those words, mercurial, enigmatic. He's a player who is unique. You know, such was, you know, the clamour for someone like Jack Grealish to help England have that little bit of devil, that bit of guile to unlock, you know, defences that offered that low block in big major tournaments. But does it feel like sort of City evolved and passed him by and his peak was a very, very short-lived one?
I mean, it was interesting in the treble season when Pep Guardiola clearly believed in him and he played Grealish in the big games. And Grealish was a game changer. The way he cut in from the left, the way he won free kicks, he won fouls, he opened up space for teammates. I think you're right, and referring to what Martin's alluding to, I think there's definitely a tactical development. You look at Savinho and Doku. Doku's decision-making has really developed under Pep Guardiola. So Grealish couldn't really lay claim, you know, first choice for the left. Savinho's been playing sort of on the right, and I mean, Grealish would love to play as a number 10, and you know, he played exceptionally for Lee Carsley against the Republic of Ireland out in Dublin as a number 10, where he played in his early formative years in the youth academy at Aston Villa. But it's just been difficult for him, and he's not going to get back in the England squad on the left with Gordon and Madueke and Rashford, probably if he tears it up at Barcelona. He's not going to get back in the England squad as a 10 because of Bellingham, Foden, Cole Palmer. So, it's partly a confluence of things, but also Grealish has got to look at himself. I mean, we all love Jack the Lad, as we call him in headlines, and he's an incredibly likeable individual. The community work that he does. You see him when he gets off the coach, when he walks into the ground, the emotional engagement, the fans love him. But he's just got to focus and get supremely fit. I think he's 30. I think Martin Hardy says in his piece in the Times, a really interesting read. I think he says that he's 30 in September. So, the clock is ticking. And Graham Souness, when he was talking about him earlier this year, he's right. This is his peak years when he's got the intelligent, the tactical nous, and he's still got the sort of physicality. It really is down to Jack Grealish now, and whether Everton and the manager in David Moyes, it's an interesting combination, can fit him in. I mean, they've got Njai on the left. I know he can play all over. They've got McNeil as well, who's pretty flexible, but, he's very good on the left. Can he play as a number 10? Ultimately, as we all know in football, it'll probably come down to wages and how much Manchester City are prepared to pay off his wages if he does go off on loan to Everton. Yeah,
it's interesting the Everton reference you make there, because the other player that strikes me, and there's lots that are referenced here in Martin Hardy's piece, but, a lot of them are from a while ago, George Best and also Paul Gascoigne. But I think also Dele Alli is another one who I kind of think of it almost in this sphere. An incredibly talented player who lost his way and who does play in that same kind of position and that part of the pitch. Martin, do you think that Jack Grealish has it in him to evolve sufficiently as a player? The best players, the most intelligent players in the world, we're talking of, Christoph Lahm, you're talking of, obviously, Lionel Messi. They have evolved with time and made sure that the game has never passed them by. Can Grealish somehow adapt to do that?
I think he can. I mean, he's working with a personal trainer, although he has been training alone. Physically he looks fit and toned, and I don't think he's let that side of himself go. So it's really, I guess, it'll be confidence. There'll be somebody believing in him. But I don't think he's got the sort of, the troubles that, for example, Dele Alli has had to cope with. So, which is a different story entirely. I think this is very much something more of a football issue, perhaps. I know people say Jack the lad, he likes going out. He's certainly not alone amongst that as a footballer. So I think he certainly can turn things around. And as Henry says, he should be at his peak, and so there is no reason why he can't.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's still sub-30. I think he's still in a place where he can have an impact in his career, and if he is able to develop that Philipp Lahm-like way of thinking, one of the players that I remember Pep Guardiola, when he was at Bayern Munich, said was the most intelligent player that he had coached, and of course he managed to evolve into that sort of holding midfield role from a right-back role, etc., and be versatile. I wonder whether David Moyes is the right kind of guiding influence potentially to help him rediscover that. Let's move to the other side of Merseyside, back page of the Mirror, and we have Arne Slot pictured there. Big spender, but boss Slot insists it's not all about the club's new arrivals. They're title favourites, but not because of their huge transfer spend this summer. Henry, is that fair? That had they not splashed out £300 million, they would still be title favourites? Or is he being a little cute here?
Well, Arne Slot is very cute. I mean, whenever he talks, he talks well, and B, he talks with a lot of intelligence. I mean, the £300 million, you have to offset that against the fact that Liverpool have brought in £150 million. They only spent, £10 million on Chiesa last season. And actually, probably one of their most consistent and most exciting players in pre-season has been Rio Ungama, who actually arrived from Chelsea a year ago. And just, he's 16 and looks at a huge talent. Whether playing, cutting in off the left, he's already created and scored for Liverpool in pre-season. So yeah, absolutely, we can focus on Florian Wirtz, who, I mean, Martin and I have watched a lot of football down the years, and Florian Wirtz is the type of player who could fit into any team, into any generation. He is a fabulous footballer. If you want to play him, he will absolutely play you because he's got the skill. If you want to fight him, he's got that physical and mental strength, and he'll absolutely fight you. If you want to try and outpass him, he'll do exactly the opposite, the same to you. So I think he's a fantastic signing. They've got the two new fullbacks, Milos Kerkez and Frimpong. It was interesting listening to Slot talking earlier today about Frimpong. Everyone's sort of saying, well, he's a right back. He'll be competing with Conor Bradley, who I think is injured at the moment. But actually, when Mo Salah, and this is a very good point that Arne Slot made today in his press conference, that when Mo Salah goes off to AFCON, he'll be away for 5-6 games maximum with Egypt. Frimpong can play further forward. So you look at Liverpool's, we haven't even mentioned Hugo Ekitike and possibly Alexander Isak coming in to make the, probably the best strike force in Europe, certainly outside of Barcelona. So, Liverpool are incredibly well run. As their recruitment, they balance the budget. So Arne Slot quite rightly is sitting there with a smile. But he's got a game on Sunday against Crystal Palace in the Community Shield when Crystal Palace have Mark Gay, who's exactly the type of player they do need. If you look at this Liverpool side at the moment, the one area where they do look a bit short is at centre-half, particularly with doubts over Konate, Gomez injured, issues like that.
On the face of it, Martin, it looks like very good business that Liverpool have done, especially if they receive a reasonably sizable fee for Darwin Núñez getting to the Saudi Pro League. But is there any danger that they've changed too much too soon?
I don't think so. I think they'd actually come to a sort of natural part of their journey, as it were, where they needed to refresh quite considerably. They hadn't made a huge number of signings last season. So I think if you want to keep going and you want to improve, and Arsenal on their shoulders made a lot of signings themselves, I think they had to do it, and they've spent very well. And obviously Isak, probably their number one target, is going to, if that happens, I think they will think they've had a very, very good window indeed, and absolutely title favourites.
One team who haven't had a particularly active window, in fact it has been described as passive, is Crystal Palace, and Oliver Glasner features on the back page of the Mirror in Ryan Taylor's piece. He's hinted that Palace's transfer business will shape whether he signs a contract extension. Not really the noises you want to hear from your manager ahead of another big showpiece for Palace, really, being involved in this Community Shield, Henry. How concerning is this? What did you read between the lines in terms of what he said and what he didn't say?
Well, he's completely right to say it. I mean, not so much about his own future, as he says. That shouldn't be discussed in the next 3 weeks. It should be about the sort of the future of the squad and who they can bring in. So whether he's trying to put pressure on the Crystal Palace board, I mean, this is a game that managers play. We're pretty used to it. But I actually think he's got a very good relationship with Steve Parish, who probably of the owners of the Premier League is probably the most football savvy of them all, and will be aware and knows a good player and can get them in, and will be aware the shortages in the squad. I think there's also a concern that if Arsenal come in for Eberechi Eze, because Arteta is known to be an admirer of his, you don't want to be losing players of that talent. So I can understand Glasner's concern, and absolutely Palace should be concerned, because they've got a fabulous manager there who's managed to make 3-4-2-1 work with the quality of his coaching and some good recruitment in the background. Yeah,
it feels, Martin, that Palace are in a particularly delicate predicament. When you add together situation with Glasner, situation with Mark Gay, the Berries, as Henry's referred to, the situation with Conference League versus Europa League, the case that's gone to CAS. Do you feel like this could be actually quite a rapid descent from that peak and that high of that FA Cup final win in qualifying for Europe?
Well, I think there's definitely been a distraction caused by this UEFA ruling. And Steve Parish and the lawyers were in Switzerland today at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Should hear the outcome of that at the start of next week, and perhaps that will enable Palace to focus perhaps on team strengthening, their transfer strategy. What are they going to do with Gay? If he's determined to go, he's got a year left on his contract. As Henry says, if Arsenal come in for him, what would that say to Palace fans if he left as well? They absolutely probably need some reinforcements, and perhaps time is running out. The season's about to start, so I'm sure the fans really want to see some action.
Yeah, and remember that they signed late in the window last summer. And they did make a slow start, didn't they, Crystal Palace, only to pick up momentum in the mid and latter points of the season. OK, Martin and Henry, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We're going to take a quick break, other side of which we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this.